Hello, I am Angela Parker. The program and evaluation that I am providing today supports the social stability of housing policies and guidance issued under Housing and Urban Development. As an evaluator, I was able to determine and identify gaps in the types of services received as well as services rendered under new construction substantial rehabilitation program. I appreciate the opportunity of being selected to address the necessity to redefine this program and address the needs of the disabled population. If we search the internet or other media sources, we'll find the definition for accessible as meaning capable of being reached, used, influenced. This is indicative of what I found under Merriam-Webster Dictionary. Stakeholders for my qualitative study were selected by regional data using the standard form issued by the federal government. The required form has selections in which applicants or representatives choose the applicable disability as the HUD authority tracks that data. For the sake of following the criteria on HUD's application to ensure data matches the relationship fields within the federal government's data warehouse, the terms used are physical, mental, and behavioral challenged. Dawkins and Miller share that populations classified as disabled have far more housing needs than the remaining population. Statistics are the disabled population is 66%. 53% of that population apply for vouchers within the program to assist with projects or grant housing. However, 70% of those recipients rarely meet qualifications. This data shows there is certainly an area that is subpar based on the approval of standardized loans compared to the remaining public. Today, the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADAAA, has areas of the act in which communities, in particular those disabled, lack housing needs. There are numerous buildings, homes, recreation facilities that predate ADAAA of 1973. They have not updated amenities to meet the qualifications of disabled. The disabled population is aging, and there are challenges that are growing with that population. The objective of this study is to ensure improvements in policies are inclusive of the accessibility requirements. I have identified action items to be discussed later under new construction substantial rehabilitation program. Gilderberg and Rosentraub support the use of block grants as short-term remedies because the federal government issues funding that can be allocated to serve populations such as disabled. Those authors also identify that there are limitations that should be removed, such as the term barrier-free. This concern is there are too many discrepancies with services offered, educational services, inconsistencies in data, as well as collection of data regionally. My goal is to ensure that there is adequate funding and the ability to dispense that funding to recipients. I conducted a cost-benefit analysis. That analysis was used as it was more appropriate as a mechanism that applies to the terms of the program, as well as to the benefit of the recipients. The cost-benefit analysis includes money to be allocated for training, outreach, social programs, updates to the websites, as well as surveys. The expectations are the monetary values will translate into a gain from the participants of the housing program. Cost-effective analysis was not used as the objective is not to determine the efficiency of the evaluation. The objective is to determine why our participants or recipients of the disabled program have these various experiences. The Selected research method for the program is qualitative, as the evaluator myself is studying why there is a lack of resources dedicated to access for the disabled population. The focus of the study is to understand the gaps in data with respect to education or interest of the program and make sure the disabled population has the required accommodations and accessibility. The research question that guides this study is how does the lack of policy or program enhancements impede the needs of the disabled population with respect to housing? Hansen and a Fusco research supports that evaluators are to look at the effectiveness of the program with monitoring and consistent evaluating. Cost and quality of policies determined are heavily weighted when it comes to data collection to ensure there is integrity of the evaluation. There is also a concern with plausibility, as there is justification that meets the needs of the target population as well. Qualitative methodology was used for this evaluation. Bush, Amici, and Persky share that data analysis and interpretation has to be understandable. It has to apply to the current research approach, and it has to be accepted within the designated program. The purpose or inquiry must be identified to ensure target audience understands the premise of the study. The evaluator will state the research question, provide responses, identify the data collection resources and measures, the storage and disposal manner that follows the guided qualitative standard. The strength of qualitative method is to ensure data is aggregate of the program, there is purposeful sampling, triangulation, and that it offers the advantages of emergent and fluid design. There also is the opportunity that exploration of a problem in a natural setting is identified. The weakness is there could be ambiguity, subjectivity, generalization, and difficulty with anonymity. There could also be complex data collection and analysis, and also the inability to replicate the findings and bias, according to IMTA. My sample size was conducted with 76 participants. I issued 180 requests. The participants were contacted immediately after I reviewed the documents that were sent back in-house. I reviewed the qualifications to make sure each participant had the attributes that was needed for this particular qualitative study. I also reviewed the informed consent documents to ensure that those documents were signed and dated. I submitted documents back to the participants to indicate that I had received and that those participants were allowed to participate in the study. I also informed with my response to the participants that data collection and storage will consist of 7 years. Upon the termination of those 7 years, there would be a destruction of those documents as well as a destruction of the recordings. The recordings were of the participants were recorded via phone. For the collection and the data analysis, I use in vivo or Invo software to identify certain attributes of the statements in which the participants use as their reply. Those analysis within in vivo software were able to allow me to identify terms, trends, as well as analyze and code that particular data. 4 themes emerged within my findings. And I use some of that information within the findings from direct quotes that the participants provided. Several of the direct quotes were pulled randomly. Those quotes were from 10 of the participants. So the above themes support or validate what my participants wanted to share. Raw data was inserted into in vivo software. The selection identifies the themes as well as what the evaluator is able to distinguish within the patterns. The main research addresses what I, as the evaluator, wanted to determine as the effectiveness of the construction substantial rehabilitation program. One implication that I did find is that the participants held HUD responsible for education of the housing program and the improvement of the process needed to make sure that disabled population was represented. Upon conclusion of the research and completion of my evaluation, there were 6 action items that I identified. I also identified that I wanted to write up a policy memo as well as a brief to provide to my target audience to ensure that they understood the need for this program to be implemented right away. The hopes is that there will be approved funding for fiscal year 24 and 25. Again, evaluators will ensure the target audience understand the significance or the consequence of not implementing improvements and the impact to the social welfare of the disabled population. So my required action items were to ensure the department is compliant with agency housing policies, ensure personnel are trained with customer service, ensure employees know of HUD's new construction substantial program requirements, as well as the workflow, and update the information on HUD's website to make sure it meets ADAA compliance. The final action was to ensure there is an annual audit for the disabled process to ensure that there are no missing elements, as well as initiate a survey afterwards to make sure that the participants in the program understand or can provide information about their experience. As an evaluator, I have reviewed the history and the performance of the program, the prior impact, and the gaps, and addressed cost-benefit analysis to support the needs of the program. The program will be monitored to ensure compliance annually. Communication initiatives will also be released using campaigns, community awareness, and the outreach initiatives. The goal is to increase the level of involvement, making sure there are effective and efficient operations to reinforce the agency's trust with the public. The new construction substantial rehabilitation program target audience has agreed to collaborate and partner with nonprofit, for-profit, and small businesses entities to develop media release as communication has been deemed a necessity. Enhanced community involvement will include the impacted stakeholder population to ensure they are part of the decision making. ADAA websites will also follow the ADAA compliance format, accessibility, and accommodations. I have included within the evaluation package the purpose of the research, the policy brief, the policy memo, my recommendations and conclusion, as well as a cost-benefit analysis that substantiates support of the program.